Always sounds so important and formal. So, Louisa, not to correct you immediately, but we are no longer Elmhurst College.
Oh,
Yay, we're Elmhurst University now. We became that as of July 2020, so I can't fault you for not knowing that was just a little over a year ago. So thanks everybody for taking some time to join me today on my little PowerPoint adventure here on Zoom. As she said, I'm Tim Alberg. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at Elmhurst University. I work with fine art students, art, music, and theater students who come here for undergrad, either transfer or undergrad. And my favorite part is I work with the ELSA program, which is the Elmhurst Learning and Success Academy here at Elmhurst University. ELSA, as we like to call it, unfortunately nothing to do with letting anything go, is the 4-year post-secondary college experience program here for young adults with differing abilities between the ages of 18 and 28. We're a bit of a unique animal in that we are 4 years and we are very much like a traditional college experience. I really like my students to think of ELSA as if it's their major here at the university. So we focus on these things you see here on the slide: academics, work experience, independent living skills, and that social recreational experience that kind of comes built in with a college experience. So we really want our students to be living on campus if they can, part of campus life, joining clubs and organizations, being, as much a part as Elmhurst University, but our curriculum is very specialized towards these goals you see before you. Our team, this is kind of our core crew. Like I mentioned, I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions, so I'm the front door person and the talkie box guy. Jane Kanata is our director of the program, and she's the director of ELSA. She's our chief firefighter, our academic advisor. She teaches in the program. Katie Vicari is our student life specialist, so she works with all of our housing things in terms of hiring folks and supporting our students who live on campus. And then Mary Jo Ramacone is our newest member. She joined us this summer. She's our new career coordinator. So she teaches all of our career skill courses and has a lot to do with our internships and job placements, which I'll get to in a sec. So our prospective students are between the ages of 18 and 28, and they're finished with high school. So we're post-secondary. So on average, the student age probably is more like 19 to 22. We don't require that a student does transition before they come to us, but it isn't a bad idea to get some transition under your belt, to get some work experience and those kinds of things before you come to us. Our students are definitely interested in doing this. They're interested in school, they're they're interested in literacy, working with technology. They really want to get a job, or they have experience working, and they want to do the whole independent living thing is a big part of it. Our students need to have those sufficient emotional skills and the capacity for independence to do that. They need to be able to navigate a campus. We don't do one-on-one aids. We're a little bit like a traditional college experience, which can be a little leery for some of my families. But when that student has that sufficient emotional skill to want to do this, you'll find that they'll be pretty excited to get here and be part of our campus environment. And we need our students to be able to read, write, do our math, and comprehend what we read at a minimum of a 3rd grade level. So, and of course, we'd like to have our students enjoy strong family support towards the program goals and all that good stuff. But that 3rd grade level is a pretty big deal, especially when it comes to the reading side of things. We can be a little fudgy with math, but the reading comprehension, we really like to see our students at that 3rd grade level. Probably on average, the majority of my population in the program are between 5th and 7th grade, with a lot of exceptions, some right around the 3rd grade level and some that are a little bit above the average, and even close to grade level. So I mentioned before, academics is something that makes us really unique. We really want to increase our students' literacy. We want to really increase our use of technology. Most of our students are pretty technically able these days, but you'll be surprised to learn that getting into Microsoft products and calendars and email and all that stuff, we still have a lot of work to do in those areas for some of my people. And then that capacity for writing, for math, purposeful reading is a big part of us. And we really like to kind of institute that whole concept of reading for pleasure still, which is becoming a lost art amongst my entire college population, it seems these days. Our classes are all team taught by ELSA faculty and Elmhurst University students. So our secret sauce for our program is that a lot of our undergrad students work for us. So we have a pretty big program in speech pathology, a pretty well-regarded program in education, as well as in special education. So a lot of those students end up getting hired by us to be teaching assistants in the classes, job coaches on job sites, life coaches for my students who live on campus. I'll get back to that, as well as what we call community advisors who actually live in the residence halls with our students. So we employ 30 to 35, sometimes 40 undergrad students to work with us, which gives a lot of inclusion opportunities with my students and my students in other programs. Something else that's also exciting about this program is after that first year, so year one, we have sort of a cohort style, all our intro classes, intro to college life, career skills exploration, intro to healthy living. I wanted to say heavy lifting, really bad. Healthy living and financial smarts and things like that. They kind of go through all that stuff together in year one. So we get to know our students really well through those classes. They get to know us and our expectations through those classes. But after that, we start allowing this thing we call the ELSA electives, where they can actually participate in traditional university courses here. We do them typically pass no pass, so that we can make modifications for those classes if we need to. But it allows a student to either pursue a particular interest in something outside of our program, if they wanted to get into art or theater or business or Spanish. Those are all things that our students have participated in these classes for. And they can even earn an additional certificate of specialization in a particular area, which might lend itself towards the career piece near the end of the program. Or it just might allow them to kind of change it up a little bit and pursue things that they're into as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a specialization thing, but it, again, gives a lot of opportunity for inclusion opportunities around the campus environment in terms of peers and friendships and social stuff and all that kind of good things. But as you can imagine, over the years of doing these electives, we've had a couple of students be quite successful in some of those areas. And so we created this other strand we call ELSA Plus. So when we have that situation and somebody's able to do all the work in the class at level, then they are permitted to take those classes for college credit. And so it's an opportunity and a possibility to start building up some college credit on a college transcript separate from the certificate, with the goal of either taking it with them to go to a community college perhaps after they finish with the ELSA program if they wanted, or even possibly moving into a degree program here. I will say it's a difficult road. When we're taking those ELSA Plus classes for credit, we no longer have that ability to make modifications. We can't allow accommodations, which any student at a college can get, but they would have to do all the work at level within the courses. But we've had several students do the ELSA Plus program and have been quite successful, though I will qualify that with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It's hard work. But just this past spring, we had our first student graduate with an art degree who started as an ELSA student and went through the ELSA Plus process to move over to a degree program. It did take him about 6 years. It was not easy at certain points in that process, but he did do it. So it's kind of a cool thing that we do. It's a little bit unique. In that same vein, we also have the Advantage program, where that's more the opposite model. So I do have some degree seeking students who come here who maybe need a little bit more support than what's typically available by the access and accommodation services that most schools have, including us. So they take a single class in ELSA along the way to kind of help with that transition into the college process. It is not a perfect program. It is not for everybody. This year I had a banner number of those students. I have 7 Advantage students this year, and 4 of them are kicking butt and 3 of them are struggling. And so it's definitely been, and I think anybody can speak to any school situation. This whole coming back from a pandemic thing's been uphill for sure. But the Advantage program is kind of a unique opportunity for students to get a little bit more support and kind of work a little bit with our staff, especially me, on the kind of helping, the transition piece. So I mentioned before, the career piece is a big part of the ELSA program, especially in the last 2 years of the program. It's kind of where our return on investment, or ROI, if you will, come in. We really want to see our students leave us with a better ability to live independently. We want them to have improved their academic skills and all that stuff too, and have that whole social recreational thing I'll get back to in a second. But the big one is we want them to be able to leave us with a better ability to seek out and hold meaningful employment. And we do everything in our power to see that they leave us with a job, placing them into some kind of employment. And we've been pretty fortunate in the last several years, maybe 2020 notwithstanding, with approximately a 90% employment rate. The last 2 years have been a bit bumpy because of the same reason it is for everything. Although this year it's shaken out a little bit better because there are so many jobs open these days. So we have a lot of opportunities there. But along the way throughout the program, again, especially junior, senior year, but not uncommonly in the sophomore year too, we start looking at different kinds of job experiences that your student might be up for, interested in, and we think they're good for. And again, we're a smaller program. I did mention we do have about 47 students in the program, 34 of whom live on campus. So we get to know our students pretty well, and their strengths and their challenges pretty well. And so they may have very specific ideas of what kind of jobs and things they'd like to do, but we'll get those kinds of ideas after getting to know them and where their skills are too, and try to place them accordingly. And so some of that's going to start off small on campus with, on campus jobs and things like that. But as we evolve, we'll start looking to off-campus kinds of opportunities, and hopefully by their senior year, doing some paid opportunities, either in this immediate area, or even possibly during the summer after their junior year, we'll try to set up some things kind of your area too, if we can. Make some connections in the hometown, especially when we're moving towards the end. We want to kind of set them up for success. If they want to stay in Elmhurst, they can. We've had several alumni do that, but most of you folks from Cove are probably from around the region as well. So we'll look to your areas as well for possibilities that are related to the same kinds of on-campus experiences that they have here. But the other chief thing within the context of the program there, that last bullet point, is we want to learn how to look for jobs and how to apply for jobs. So a lot of all that academic stuff that we talk about, improving our reading, improving our technology skills, the goal for that is to see that our soft skills are honed. We even have an entire J-term class, which means January term here, that's entirely job interviews. It's literally a job interview class where they go find some jobs that they think they'd be interested in. And then we bring in a bunch of people they've never met before in fancy suits and whatnot, and have them go through job interviews, and we videotape them and we give them critiques on how they did. And then we'll call them randomly during the day and put them on the spot phone interviews and things like that. So we're trying to mirror what's going on in the world of jobs. So we give them as much experience as we can, kind of preparing for that. But the social recreational thing is kind of where the students really dig. Like I mentioned, they're part of our university. There's 70 clubs currently at Elmhurst. They're allowed to join any of them. We do have 20 athletic teams, so some of our students can participate in athletics too, although the caveat there is they need to be participating in athletics in high school, so they have to be able to compete in order to compete here, but that's something that's been added in the last couple of years. They're very much a part of our milieu on campus in a variety of ways. And there's some support organizations that are kind of just for our students, the biggest of which being we have one of the largest Best Buddies chapters in Illinois at the college level. So a lot of my first years get pretty involved with them, and a lot of degree seeking students get involved with them too. So it becomes kind of a stealth opportunity for us to recruit degree students to work for the ELSA program, which there's that bullet there about, volunteers from all of our other programs work with us to help kind of help connect our students to the campus environment. So the residence opportunity is pretty cool too. It is not required to live on campus for this program, but it is ideal in terms of having more access to all those things I was talking about in terms of working on campus or in terms of clubs and organizations. So all the meal plans and res hall things that for any student apply to our students. There's a couple caveats though worth knowing. One, life coaching is required. And so that is an undergrad student that we will hire to work one-on-one with your student who lives on campus, 3 to 5 hours a week. So this is not an aide. This is not your study buddy. This is somebody that we'll kind of determine together as a group, our staff, you as parents, what that life coach does. And if that's executive functioning things, if that's organizing time and calendars, that's a pretty popular one amongst most of my students. If that's sort of navigating the social campus life type, I want to join the esports team, how do I do it? those kinds of things. And most of them become kind of friends. And so most of my students through all 4 years will retain their life coach, or a life coach in some cases, because they do graduate too, that to kind of come and have sort of a reference point. So it's not just a bunch of old people like me telling them what to do. They have somebody who's a peer who works with them. That's only for our students on campus. You do pay them $15 an hour, so as an additional expense. The students who live on campus are also, especially my first and second years, we tend to keep them in similar dorms on campus. They are amongst traditional students. They are co-ed dorms, but we do have specialized, what we call CAs, community advisors, who live on the floors with our students. Those folks are specially trained by us and the RA training, so that they're kind of the floor boss. They help negotiate problems. They need to know where your student is. So if your student's going home or going into town, they have to let them know. And they also, in concert with the life coaches, help do what we call travel training, which we don't allow our students to go into downtown Elmhurst or downtown Chicago or wherever until they appropriately learn and confidently demonstrate they know how to get there safely. And for the case of Chicago, learning how to navigate the Metro and using that and those kinds of things. We're about 10 minutes away here in Elmhurst from a Metro station. So again, that emotional independence piece is a big part of wanting and being able to do that kind of stuff. We are not a lockdown situation. We don't have a curfew. They are college students who are free to move about the campus like anybody else is. But we do have some support there in the res halls. So the admission process, that's me. I'm your admission counselor for this program. We have a rather complicated online application. I want it to be simple, but I ended up making an explainer video I can send to you. There's several steps. We want student writing samples. We have these letter of recommendation forms that can be sent directly from the application to your recommenders. One of them will be you, parents. The other two would come from teachers and counselors who work closely with your students at Cove or other schools they've been at, or counselors they've worked with. We'll want a high school transcript and the latest, greatest IEP and the latest, greatest psychological eval or re-eval. We usually want the re-eval done within the last 3 years, and that usually tells us a lot about demeanor and reading levels and those kinds of things. Once I get all those things in, I share that with the faculty, Jane, Katie, and Mary Jo. And if on paper you're admissible, I'll reach out to you to set up an admission interview that we do to determine admission to the program. And if that's a go, and you want to live on campus, then we have a second meeting that we do a housing screening. We also have a psychologist we work with who's on staff. She's here on Thursdays, and she actually runs group for our housing students, which I failed to mention on the housing slide. And she sits in on and does a housing screening with Katie and herself and you and the student and to make sure you're eligible for housing. Some things worth noting that's related to that: we don't do medication, so the student has to be able to self-medicate, kind of have the independence to navigate a campus environment. And parents often hear about our guardianship requirement. We do not require or care about your guardianship as it relates to admission to ELSA. However, to live on campus, we ask that a student at least is a partial guardian. They have their own personal guardianship, or plenary, I think it's called legally. You can retain financial guardianship and health guardianship, but the student needs to be able to make yes/no decisions. And the main reason we do that is so that they can adhere to the school code of conduct in living on campus, which all our students have to do. Tuition. So is it free? No, unfortunately, we are a private school. I imagine by now, this is day 2, I think, of their presentation. So you've seen several of my competition and may yet see several more. And you'll find that we're all roughly-ish the same price-ish. Some are more expensive than others. One of us is a little cheaper than all of us, and we're all sad about that. But for us, right now, the annual tuition is about $34,484 a year. We do have part-time as a possibility, so that can be a little bit more affordable, but we don't do housing for that. And you can see the typical room and board cost is just shy of $11,000. So that scary sticker shock, oh my God, price is just about, let's do math in my head, $45,000 or $46,000, depending on the meal plan, and you kind of factor in life coaching and those kinds of things. We do have access to financial aid, so you can apply and use FAFSA. In fact, we ask you to do that in order for us to give you any kind of aid. FAFSA can provide the Pell Grant if you qualify, the FSEOG grant if you qualify, and work study. Most of my students get that. And then the institution will kick in at least $1,000 depending on what FAFSA tells us, what your EFC is. So not enough, not all of it, but there is some support. A high need family can expect to be more than $1,000. You'll probably see maybe a third of that bill covered, but there's a pretty significant out of pocket, which is pretty par for the course for most programs like us these days. So that's my quick and dirty PowerPoint. You can always contact us there at the number there. That actually rings on my desk here. That ELSA email also goes to me, so you can contact me directly or through ELSA, whichever you prefer. Albergt@elmhurst.edu. I do tour appointments is kind of my thing lately. So if you set up a visit with me, I'd be happy to walk you around the campus. This is the best time of year to see it when it's not raining. Fall is really beautiful here at Elmhurst. And I do preview days as well. We just had our first in-person preview day in almost 2 years last Friday. Our next one is November 17th at 6 p.m. So that'll be our evening one. So it'll be a little chilly for the tour, but it'll be cool. And then in the spring, we'll do a couple of more. And currently, I'm tentatively hoping to have a big event called Elsa Palooza. We'll just have to see. Every time I plan anything, the pandemic gets worse. So we'll see how that goes. But we are doing in-person stuff here now. We've been back fully in person here as an institution all this year, and all last year we were kind of in a hybrid format. So we were mostly still here, just a little bit like on and off sort of scheduling thing. I try to get that fast so I have at least 7 minutes for questions if anybody has any. Oh, Andrew's here. I was going to totally razz on Rise program being cheaper than us, which I'm sure he'll be happy to point out in his presentation.
Thank you, Tim. Did you say how many students are currently enrolled in the ELSA program?
Yes, we have 47 total. 34 live on campus currently, which is the most we've ever had at one time.
Okay. Very good. Are there any other questions for Tim? Otherwise, you get to sneak out early.
Oh, cool. And is Rise next? Oh,
Rise is next. So here's one question. If a parent has medical guardianship or power of attorney over medical issues, does that disqualify them?
No. So again, it wouldn't matter in terms of admission to the program. In terms of housing, you would be able to do that medical guardianship, because that would technically be you can make sure that you have the medical guardianship. And then as long as a student has personal guardianship so that they can adhere to the school code of conduct and all those kinds of things, then you'd be okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? If not, Tim, will you share your PowerPoint with me?
Yes, I will email you. I have a handy PDF version of it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Problem.
And hopefully we'll see you in person one day in the not too distant future.
Indeed.
And our next presenter is here. We will wait for just a few minutes, Andrew, if that's okay with you. I'm gonna turn off the recording and turn off myself for a moment, and then I will return. Okay, thanks, Tim, so much.
No problem. Enjoy Andrew. He's a really nice fella.